good job of keeping them off. chit chat or nothing. We will now call to order the regular meeting of the Village of Middleville Council. May we have roll call, please? Rhonda.
Yep. Kevin Smith,
Here.
Robert Bishop,
Here.
Tracy Gillespie,
Here.
Richard Hamilton,
Here.
John Osterbahn,
Here.
Mackenzie Peters,
Here.
Ann Williams.
Here.
All right. Could we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. All right. Approval of the consent agenda?
Back up.
Oh.
We need a regular agenda first,
Oh,
and
I
that is amended.
apologize.
Yep, it's amended.
It's
And then
amended.
also, just for your information, Alec Belson will be stopping in at some point. I asked him to come in after we sent out letters regarding water services, and there's been some scuttlebutt online and things like that. So I asked him to come in and give us a short synopsis of what we're doing with that
Okay,
too.
good.
But I'm not sure exactly what time he'll be here.
All right. Well, then, could we get approval of the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Or?
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Now we can get on to the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Support.
All right. We have a motion to approve the consent agenda, which consists of the minutes of the MCOW meeting of November 6, 2024, approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of November 12th, 2024, and approval of bills as of November 21st, 2024 for the amount of $292,011.88. All those in favor?
We need a roll call.
Okay, we'll go ahead and do a roll call, please, Rhonda.
Robert Bishop,
Aye.
Tracy Gillespie,
Aye.
Richard Hamilton, John Osterbahn,
Aye.
Mackenzie Peters,
Aye.
Ann Williams,
Aye.
Kevin Smith.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, motion carries. Moving on to public comment, we have 3 minutes allotted for each speaker. Anyone out in the audience would like to come up? Please state your name and your address or where you reside and have at it.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Eric Zuzka, 4169 South Shore Drive, it's Hope Township. I'm also your new county administrator, a relatively new county administrator. One of the things when the commissioners hired me, I promised to do was to get out and visit all the villages, townships, cities. So after about 60 days of trying to figure out where everybody was in the county, I'm now on that path. I've had a chance to come out and meet with Doug and Craig and talk about what's going on in Middleville. So I appreciate that. And we appreciate being part of the Middleville project and helping where we can. So we hope to continue doing that partnership moving forward. And if we can help in any way, please let us know. As I mentioned, I do live in the county. My wife and I moved back to actually last fall before the job was posted, and just excited to be here. As you probably know, we have a lot of transition going on at the county. Michael Braun was there for 30 years, so it's a big shoes to fill. And we have other big shoes to fill with, Sue Vanderkar, Barb Hurlis, and the various clerks we've had, Cindy White, most recently. So we have a lot of transition at the county. So 25 will be a very busy year for us. So hopefully no major projects, but we'll start planning for, I hate to mention a jail, but we'll have to have those discussions and we'll be out talking to the community about that and other facilities we're looking into as well in front of the court building and such. So once again, just wanted you to be able to see my name, you know my name, see my face. If you're in Hastings, please stop by. I will try and get out to each community periodically, but probably won't see me at meetings much unless I'm needed. So, but thank you all and congratulations on your election. And I spent 18 years working for a small village, so I know what you guys are all dealing with. So good luck.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations on the new role, too.
Thank you. This is a long day. Have a great day.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, anyone else? All right, moving on.
Oh, wait.
Oh, never mind.
Good evening, Council. Kurt DeCam from Middleville. I was at the last meeting when approval was made for the flock security system. I have a few concerns, not only with the system, but also with the process as it happened. I looked up a few things. Article 16.1 in the Village Council's purchasing articles, bylaws, statement to the effect of there's a breakdown of a dollar amount, and this threshold certainly passes that dollar amount, that there would need to be 3 bids for anything, any large purchases of this amount. Now, I understand there may be, there's some leeway on that as if this were the only vendor available for security. That may be some gray area, but I think given the fact that this was a last minute added item to the agenda at the last meeting, and yet there were still representatives from this flock security along with our local sergeant that was here, just raises a whole lot of questions. One of the questions I have is our local sergeant the one who is speaking in favor of this? Is he the only one in support? Is the whole Berry County Sheriff Department, including our sheriff, are they in support of the flock camera system? There have been some comments floating around. Comments about, if we go to a bank or a post office or a drive-through, we are on camera. The difference is that's a live feed in case of erroneous activity. The difference with this flock system is it's collecting database. It's tracking movement. That is even contradictory to what some other comments have been made, is that there's no concern with Fourth Amendment rights here. That's not true. There's actually several lawsuits going on right now, a major one in Norfolk, Virginia, about Fourth Amendment rights. And I would say with that, with the comments of, hey, if you're not breaking the law, you don't have anything to worry about. That's akin to saying, if you don't say anything, don't worry about your First Amendment rights. So there are concerns with this. I have concerns for our village if lawsuits come up. And I certainly have privacy big brother concerns with this. And I think the public needs to be made aware of how intrusive this is. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Chris Winter. I live off Minster Drive, just down the road. I've been a resident for 2.5 years or so in the village. And my comment is related to the 2025 budget and the proposed water sewer increase and just the budget in general. And to sum it, I would just say I don't want to live in the village right now. And it's a shame for me to say that because I like the community. I like the people. I like the proximity to family. There's a host of reasons that I live here now. But the reason I say I don't want to be a village resident is purely dollars and cents and just cost related. I'm not a financial analyst. I did not spend any amount of time doing this, but right from the state of Michigan's website, it's micommunityfinancials.michigan.gov. You can see revenue and expense information for villages, cities, and townships. I just pulled 8 villages, including ours, in the surrounding area. So I looked at Middleville, Lake Odessa, Saranac, Nashville, Woodland, Hopkins, Freeport, and Caledonia. And just very simple revenue, and 2023 was the most recent. So that's what I looked at, revenue and expenses. And then I divided it by the population to get a per capita. We are the highest of that list of 8 villages in per capita expense. And for point of reference, Caledonia, for example, is spending about 31% per person that we are in their budget. So I just, again, I'm new to the municipal government. I don't have any experience in this arena, but I wanted to ask the question of why that is and what's driving some of that, just to understand it better. In my mind, and again, this may be an oversimplification. I know this is a complex problem, and I don't envy you guys having to navigate through these types of issues, but it seems that in comparison to these other villages, for our per person expenses to be higher, and in many cases significantly higher, it would mean either our village is providing services and benefits that other villages aren't. And I would be curious to know if that's the case, what those are, because I don't always feel the value of those personally, or that we're spending for the same services, but we're spending more. So to me, those are the two likely root causes of why that would be. Maybe it's a combination of the two, but it's just very expensive. And this is anecdotal. This is one person, but I live in a neighborhood where all the houses look the same. So I'm not an outlier in terms of my property tax. I paid $8,000 last year for property tax, which is $670 some a month. It just went up another $100 a month. So if I just look at it, am I getting $700 per month worth of value from the village?
I'm sorry, your time is up.
That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Anyone else? We did have reserved time for Catherine Getty, but she's not here.
I don't see her. Nope.
All right. Well, with that, we will close the regular session and open
You have to have a motion for that.
the public hearing. So let's go ahead and make a motion to do that.
I'll make a motion to close the regular meeting and open. What am I doing?
Public hearing.
Public hearing, there you go. Lost it.
All right. All right. Motion with support. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. And with that, we are now opening the public hearing.
Okay, so the gentleman just up here asking about comparison to other villages and things like that. There definitely is a difference, and I can pull some of that data for Mr. Winter if you want to give me a call or email. I can certainly pull some of that, but for a real quick example, the village of Caledonia does not provide any water or sewer services at all. All the village of Caledonia water and sewer services is provided by Caledonia Township. So they have no personnel whatsoever attributed to that. So they have road services, and that's really, about the extent of what the village of Caledonia has. But to go into comments about the budget for 2025, what you have in front of you is a balanced budget presented in front of you, which does include my proposed reorganization of the DDA and planning and zoning, subject to the approval by the DDA board, which we're hoping to have that scheduled right before the December 17th meeting. So if you all are interested and can make that at 5 o'clock, we're planning on posting that and inviting you all to that as well. Other assumptions that are going into this budget, the inflation rate is expected to rise 2.3% through the 2025 calendar year. Taxable value on real property is expected to grow from 4.5%. It does include 10% increase in both water and sewer rates based on the recommendation from the water and sewer study that we had completed last year. Others, the general operating fund would assume a balance if everything goes as assumed of 1.6 million by the end of the year next year. Major streets fund 1.4, local streets just shy of $1 million, DDA budget just over 300,000, and LDFA just over 1.3 million. Any other questions before?
We'll have our discussion.
Yeah, they have their discussion down further. I also messed up because I closed this meeting and went to public hearing, and you are really part of the regular meeting.
Oh,
We go to public hearing when we do comments.
it seemed out of whack to me, but it's
Yeah, I'm
okay.
sorry.
And then another amendment will need to be made for this. If you notice, well, you don't have it in front of you, maybe you do, but, and all this was provided to you at the November Committee of the Whole, and it was provided to the two new trustees in their orientation packet as well. The fund balances for the water and sewer include actual infrastructure, which it should not include that. So I'll back that out and include only the actual dollars that we have in fund balance. So for example, the sewer fund shows a fund balance at the end of 2025 of 9.1 million, which we don't have 9.1 million in cash, but that would be our 9.1 million total assets if you included all the pipes and everything else that provides the sewer for that. And same with the water, showing 3.2. Okay. All right. That concludes my
So
statement.
at this point, I need your expertise on how I fix that motion. Do we need to rescind the one that took us into the, to
We can
the
just
public
include-
hearing part and do another one?
We can just include my comments in the public hearing. Be fine.
Okay.
All right. I'd like to open this back up again for public comments.
Hello again,
Winter.
Chris Winter. Part of the data I was looking at, I did go through the proposed budget. Again, I'm not an expert, but I did have questions specific to some of the things that are in there. And again, I'm very curious to compare with other villages. Caledonia was at the bottom of that list, but villages that are closer to us in terms of cost per person are Lako, Saranac, Nashville. The general fund, and again, this is 2023, is on the state of Michigan's website. Does anyone want a copy of this? It's not scientific, but to reference.
I'll take it.
Do you have more copies than one?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I should, dang it.
Where's the data located?
Forgot to talk about water and sewer rates.
I see it. Sorry, the URL is there. This is a Michigan state website. So I'm curious about the general fund, which is 40% of the 2023 expenses. Each of those tables cascades, so it essentially is a double click in. So of the general fund expenses for 23, general government was half of that, 51%. And of that general government category, the all other general government was 41%. So that's a significant portion of our total. And I'm curious, again, for the general, more of the administrative spending, how that compares with other villages. If we see there as being opportunity in any capacity to better align with the surrounding villages. Again, I enjoy being a resident of the community, but things cost a lot. And, that's not going to change overnight, even if things take a favorable turn. And we're all optimistic for the future, I hope. But they keep going up, the property taxes do. And I know there's a reason for that. We touched on inflation. But I'm just trying to understand how it works and then make sure too, as a resident of the village, I understand the services that are being offered and can participate in some of those as well. So, thank you.
Well presented, by the way. I appreciate that a lot. Does anyone else like to comment? All right.
I have one question.
Sure.
This might address the gentleman's question too. I know the TIF project just got passed this year. That breaks down to about $321,000 per year that it costs this community to fund that developer to put these apartments up, which were put under the guise of affordable housing. Does that show up in this budget as any line item? That amount's just kind of blended in?
I mean,
That does not show up in this, the 2025 budget yet, because that hasn't, it's not going to affect this 2025 budget until they're
complete.
built.
Okay. Is that paid out yearly or is that a lump sum?
It's
or-
paid out yearly, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So there's one. There's 321,000 that goes away to someone not in this community. And the cameras are gonna cost you $8 plus $4 a year.
Anyone else? All right. Assuming this is a motion to close. All right, anyone would,
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Support.
we have a motion with support to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right. Thus ends the public hearing. And to resume back to discussion, yes.
Mr. President, if I may.
Please.
A couple of things. Firstly, that I wanted to point out, that we've had multiple discussions of budget. And we're not increasing for the fourth year in a row. We're not increasing taxes, third or fourth year in a row.
Tax rates were not, I don't know.
We're
like,
increased, right?
They haven't been increased in probably 20 years
20,
Right.
yeah.
or more. Yeah,
So-
I'd have to look back and see the last time that they actually were.
Right. When we look at taxes as a whole that a property pays, I know for me, 2/3 of my taxes are billed through the township. I'm not saying the township is responsible for that because they also distribute that to the state and to the county. So, 3/4 of my taxes are billed through the township and not through the village. So 100% of that 8,000 a year that you pay is not all village. So when we look at that, that's a factor, and I'm sure Craig will be happy to go over with you some of the smaller things that services we do provide, like he had mentioned, Caledonia doesn't provide a water and sewage system. When we look at the sewer rate increases, I think by regulation, the water sewer plant has to pay for itself. It can't be paid through taxes. So therefore, we have to have rates that can sustain operations and pay off the rebuild that facility was built to encapsulate growth. So when we have developers come in that want to build apartments and things like that, that should help offset some of the future costs because those are people paying into those water rates. And then when we look at, I don't know if now is an appropriate time to look at those cameras, but I'll address those in my final council comments. And that's all I had.
I do know that the village of Nashville, for example, has one TIF. It's for 2 apartments above a store. And that TIF, if I remember right, is $200,000. They don't have any large apartment building structures. They have no industry in that town. You can be either Lansing or Battle Creek or Grand Rapids for a job.
Twin City Foods is there.
It's fine. No question. But it's a smaller town. They don't offer the services that we offer here, mainly because they don't have those systems in that village. Rents are lower there. Housing is about $100,000 lower. A $350,000 house here would be $250,000 there, just 25 miles away. So it has a lot to do with our properties, which you know, you own one. I guess being part of the we might be far away from Grand Rapids, but we're really Metro Grand Rapids. Soon to be that even more so. And that's what drives up this taxable value of our home. That's just one example that I know of.
Anyone else have anything?
I do. I do think there are areas that we can cut things that I noticed, and I'm new at this, but we have 4 police officers in Middleville. And that seems to me, the 30 years I've lived here, that seems like, why do we need 4 full-time police officers? You know, that's just one example, you know, of salary we're paying out every year that maybe we could cut back, you know, if we found things like that in other areas, you know, we could decrease the spending a little, you know, I mean, like I said, I don't have all the answers, but that's what sticks out to me out of this, just off the top. We can make more of an effort, I guess. And I've thought that, you know, that's why I ran. So maybe it's something we can just look at more carefully in detail.
Anyone else?
I can tell you what I see in this data here. And if you immediately look at it, these are almost perfectly sorted by population, with the exception of Caledonia. So as you go up for more expense per capita, it's because population increases. So as you add services to a town, the bigger the population, the more those services cost. And so, and it's not just about who's in the community. You know, it's not, you know, elderly people don't provide into the economy as well as young people, which we have big groups of both. So a per capita isn't necessarily indicative of what you're getting in taxes. Also with Caledonia not providing water, that would be why they're the lowest. But if you look at the per capita ratio, it increases as population increases. So that doesn't say to me that we are out of line anywhere, because if you look, we're only slightly higher than Lake Odessa and we have twice their population. So for one, this data doesn't have anything to do with water and sewer. And for two, this seems to line up with where we should be. So that's my opinion. And that's just 10 minutes of looking at this data.
So I think a few things. First of all good points, Mr. Winter, and I appreciate the comments and regarding the tax rates and whatnot. I think, first of all, it's good due diligence before you to come to us with this information. It's thought-provoking, and it's something that I think we obviously have to look inward to consider when we're held account for the things that we provide. Are we doing the community justice with the amount of money that they're paying for those services? So value is certainly one aspect of that. There's other things that are a little bit more complicated with regard to that rate, but Mr. Bishop also makes a good point that, you know, with a rising population, so does expenses, and so does the number of people that are required in order to manage that. Now, while the village real estate doesn't expand, we're pretty landlocked unless we start going on, unless we start acquiring township land. It really is, a very concentrated area, of which the village and those before Alan Edwin, for instance, invested an enormous amount of infrastructure that sat on empty land for many, many years simply because of an unexpected housing crash, right? So there's a lot of moving pieces to this, all of which are worth a conversation and certainly to bring to bear some tangible numbers, and it allows for conversation that I think we need to have with ourselves. I do want to comment a couple of things. The first thing is the TIF issue has nothing to do with where your taxpayer dollars go. It's where it's where the person who's supposed to be paying the taxes isn't paying them. So the check that's getting written to him is a reimbursement to a check that he's already written. So it's a zero-sum game. There's no money going in, there's no money going out. That land, by the way, is generating within the next year and a half, is going to be generating $300,000 to $400,000, maybe $500,000 in tax roll money that we didn't have before we negotiated the break on the apartment complex. So that was a negotiation, and those negotiations we're not collecting taxes on the value of that apartment complex that's going in as he's putting people into our community and expanding our population. We're still collecting taxes on that land, just not at the value in which he is going to be increasing it once he adds buildings and infrastructure and a pump station or a lift station and a number of other things. The flip side of that is that there's several commercial properties in the front of that property that, by the way, we're collecting no taxes on that right now. And we will soon be generating $300,000 to $400,000, maybe potentially even $500,000 annually in tax revenue because those properties are going to be developed. So the community actually benefits almost immediately from that TIF program, which is the entire intent. Now, I've done a lot of reading on TIF programs, and it's not about us as residents paying taxes. It's about us generating economic development on property that's collecting zero taxes or very small amount of taxes and sitting vacant and doing nothing. So what we've done is negotiated with a builder who's going to increase that land from next to nothing to millions of dollars, and then eventually we'll be able to collect taxes on that. Now, in a microwave society, we wish we could collect that money tomorrow, but in the long-term benefit for us today, as well as our children, that tax roll it will be a windfall for this village, because when the time comes when that TIF program runs out, he's going to be writing checks. We're not going to be writing checks to him to balance that tax collection to zero. He's going to be writing those checks to the village of Middleville for taxes that are going to be collected that otherwise wouldn't have been collected unless he developed that land. So it's a complicated dance. And in this particular case, I think the village is actually a winner. We're also going to have some commercial development that otherwise would have never happened at a level that this particular developer has relationships that are going to bring some interesting services to Middleville that we wouldn't have had before. So it is, again, open for discussion, and certainly a TIF program is complicated, and it needs to be pared down to we're not subsidizing anything. We're just delaying the increase of property value. We're delaying it for a time so that he can be made whole for bringing in millions of dollars in property value. So it's a beneficial program, and certainly I am 100% supportive of it. And believe me, as a taxpayer with commercial property and a resident here in Middleville, I am not a fan of taxes every time I write a check, but at the end of the day, that is something that that particular program made sense, and I think we did a lot of really good work to get it done. So, and then the last comment that I have is really, and again, all of what I've said is open for discussion. I really do believe that if you look around for what Middleville has versus a Laco or versus a Saranac, we have far greater number of capital improvements and infrastructure, and certainly a lot of value added. And I use that, I appreciate that term. There's a lot of value added services here in the town. I don't know, I don't recall a time when we've woke up after a big snowstorm that our roads weren't plowed by 9 o'clock in the morning. So as a perfect example. So, but it's again, something that's worth consideration and more conversation. And I really do appreciate how you engage, and you are definitely, both of you, by the way, that have commented are certainly worthy of more discussion. And I, and I'm sure the rest of the council would be more than happy to go through the details for sure. I'm going to just take a 10-second sideline and say, with regard to the flock camera, I appreciate all the comment that were made about that. It is kind of a unisystem that system integrates with other law enforcement agencies that are using the same system. So there really isn't an integrated vendor that would be a competitor of Flock. So again, and that was not a last minute decision. We talked about it nearly all summer and multiple meetings, and certainly.
Why did it never show up in the minutes?
I can answer that.
Yep.
Minutes are on, they only have to include action items. So a lot of times if they're just having a general discussion, you won't necessarily see that in there until there's a motion made.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that was something that we discussed. We'd witnessed it, seen it. We discussed it with Lowell's law enforcement. I certainly talked to a number of people as well. And frankly, we've had to the point of having 4 law enforcement personnel. We have 3, and the 4th is hard to fill. And there have been multiple business break-ins. There's a lot, people have had their houses broken into, and these are happening on shifts that need to be covered by somebody. So, there's a lot more consensus built from discussion and discourse amongst the members of this board when we approve an expense, especially large ones. It does not go without having conversation and discussion. And frankly, the fact that people are showing up for these meetings is exactly what we want. We want accountability for sure here. And as I said in one of my posts, accountability is not a bad thing. It's welcome. So I appreciate the challenge, and certainly to give you those answers.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to comment on the police department. Nashville has 2. They have 1.4 thousand residents. We've got 4 times as many with 3. We're really not out of line in the police department. We're on a main drag from Grand Rapids, Nashville's main drag between Ionia and Battle Creek. Proven here, we've got a lot more crime going on that's transient than what they have. And I think you could apply that to every one of these little towns that we're comparing to here on this little chart. The other thing I wanted to point out is we had a study on our streets. We got 18 miles of streets. 80% of them are in poor condition. The way we're going to repair those is through tax dollars. All this other discussion doesn't lower the taxes on your home. Your taxes will probably go up unless we drop the millage. Unless we have that gap where we can. Well, your home value is going to go up. Unless you're locked in on the Headley Act for the last 50 years. So that's the only comment I'd like to make.
Mr. President, if I may.
Sure.
Since we touched on the Flock system, I might as well say some of my thoughts about that now. When we had the discussion, and by the way, all the discussions are available via stream on YouTube. You can watch the whole meetings and kind of get a sense of what was discussed, why we approved it, things like that. when we looked at the flock system, Sergeant Ware presented a couple of key facts. One is the county is short-staffed, so they pulled one of our officers out of Middleville to accommodate the shortness of staff throughout the county. Second, the majority of the county, granted he didn't say the sheriff directly, but the majority of the county is for a flock system because it's a tool. It's not a surveillance system because it does record, but it dumps the information, and you can correct me, Craig, if I'm wrong.
That was my recollection.
Okay. And then additionally, the footage can't be accessed without an active case number. So there has to be an active investigation for somebody to get, yes. It was in everything, but, you know, we can certainly go back and forth on it online, or Craig will be happy to meet with you offline to kind of go through those facts or get with the company to address your concerns on that. But it was presented to us that you have to have an active case number in order to access that footage. Additionally, these cameras are going on public streets. They're not going and being pointed at people's properties. I understand there was a concern of what's public versus private properties and invasion of privacy, but I'm not a lawyer. I can't determine what that is appropriate, but we were assured that public property means we can put up, we already have cameras up for surveillance anyway, not surveillance of people, but just to make sure assets that the township or the village pays for are not being vandalized. So when we look also at last year's, just in the last 8 months, events of crime, Dick nailed it on the head when he said we have a lot of transient crime. The large amount of break-ins that were done last May were perpetrated by people that drove into Middleville in a stolen vehicle. So flock system, if we had had that in place, could have alerted the police officer who was on patrol on the opposite side of the village, letting them know there was someone in the village that wasn't supposed to be or had a flagged vehicle. And a lot of assets could have been not vandalized or not stolen at that point as well. So when I look at that, that's a lot of the positive points on that. So, and we talk about salaries and things like that and officers. Well, my understanding too is if you give people appropriate tools that can help alleviate some of the need to be everywhere at once, then you don't need so many people. So a salary of 50 to 70,000 versus 18,000 a year, I think is a big gap. And I think it's more affordable and it's a little bit more, it's more of a useful tool for our officers to utilize to prevent issues. So that's my thoughts on that.
And it's 30-second notification, by the way. If in the event that if there was a, like, I'm going to use bad terminology, but if there was an APB on a particular license plate, our law enforcement agent with this system would be notified within 30 seconds that license plate is in our village. And that's a huge win for people that have already broken the law and helps without having to patrol around and catch them randomly, because patrols are random, right? Like you just hope that you're in the right place at the right time. In this particular case, we know exactly where they are. They're driving down Main. They're going up. They're driving down, 37. At the end of that arc, we have a police officer that knows that they are in a particular vicinity. So that I think it's a useful tool. And yes, the NAACP has a case against Fourth Amendment rights, and there's a bunch of other things that I've read I've read all of those. I read all of that stuff with regard to the lawsuits, and certainly there's probably some measure of foundation to that. And I'm not a lawyer, so I can't agree or disagree with those cases. But as a tool, the state of Michigan is using it for the Michigan State Police. Grand Rapids certainly uses it. As a matter of fact,
They're looking into it.
yeah, if something happens in Kentwood, it doesn't matter whether they use them in Hastings. It matters whether we're using them because we're the next destination as they're driving to Hastings to break the law down there potentially, right? So I drove by a flock camera in Kentwood. It's on East Paris, and I drove right by and I'm like, oh, that's a flock camera. They will be ubiquitous as a tool for law enforcement in areas that they need to know where, if there's crime, they want to be able to be alerted to it. So I just think it's a great proactive. I'd rather be proactive about this than reactive and have people in our village suffer as a result of our inability to cover appropriate or take appropriate measures for protecting our people. So again, it's worth the conversation, and certainly all those concerns we can certainly wade through.
We also asked about accountability tools that they have, because I specifically referenced those cases when asking. So they do have accountability tools for bad actors, and all of those Fourth Amendment cases were bad actors. So
That's after the Fourth Amendment right has been violated.
yeah, that's how you prosecute laws, is you do it after they're broken. So someone has to break the law for you to have a case against them. So in those particular cases, it was police officers tracking like ex-girlfriends and things. Those are not allowed. There's no case number for that. So they would have to make up a case number. So that would flag in the system. And then Flock will alert or disable access based on the accountability tools that they have on their end. So that has been addressed along with the ongoing litigation. Not that they can comment wholly on that, but that was addressed in the previous meeting.
And I think it's a good point to make. It's policy driven. So the sheriff needs to be able to say, this is the policy that surrounds the use of this system. And as with any law enforcement, I mean, people look up DMV records all the time, right? I mean, heck, my insurance company and so on and so forth. So the use of those systems is regulated by policy. If those people are breaking policy, they probably shouldn't be working for the county, or certainly for us. So, but good points. And as a matter of fact, I asked that we be held account for policies surrounding that. And I think that we're going to have to do our due diligence before we take this all the way. So it's a good point.
And we'll have some policy to present to you all before they're fully installed.
Perfect. Any other comments? Any more discussion? All right.
I do have one on the TIF.
Yeah. Go ahead.
The TIF program is not something that we put together. It's something that was put together at the state of Michigan and has bipartisan support. So no matter what party you're from, your people supported it basically. And the idea is you give these incentive programs to bring in large amounts of business or large amounts of housing, depending on what you're trying for. And they do that on small scales too. Now, when you're talking about an apartment complex, so it's 140 some odd units. So if you would think of that as 140 some odd houses, and then take away like mortgage credit certificates, tax incentives for paying off mortgage interest, you get all those things to buy a house. And basically these programs are taking tax dollars and using the same idea. We're going to incentivize something by making it cheaper to do. And that's the point of the TIF program. It's rounding up a large pot of money in order to do a large project, as opposed to a small amount of money to put a house on a piece of land. So that's one of the points of the TIF program. And it's bipartisan. So I don't know why people are so upset about it. It's doing exactly what it's supposed to do. It's something that's at the state level, not our level. All we're doing is taking advantage of it.
And if I can add one thing to that.
Sure.
I'm excited for the availability of housing for those that work in our restaurants, that work in our grocery stores, that
In our
work at our schools, our assisted livings, our not so high tiered salaried roles that a lot of the folks in houses have the luxury of having. And we need workforce housing. This community has struggled with attracting people to do service blue collar jobs, and they deserve a place to be able to live quietly and peacefully and be able to commute within 20-30 minutes, if not less than that. So
The superintendent of our school said that some of the new teachers are living in order to find affordable housing, are living as far away as Rockford. Well,
Yeah.
why shouldn't we want them to live here? Why wouldn't we want to take our taxpayer dollars that we give to our citizens and have them spend that money in our community instead of taking it to Rockford? That's the whole point of these things is to put our money in our community.
Well said. Anything else? All right. Going through Trinity Training and Security, the group run. Are we going to knock that
Are
out?
we gonna approve the?
You were only at the public hearing.
The budget will be on the agenda for formal approval on December 6th, 17th, right after the DDA has the opportunity to formally approve their portion of the budget.
Oh,
Trevor DeGroot. Get to that piece of paper.
Good.
Yeah, we're good. Go for it.
I want to start with thank you for considering this on such late notice. I had no idea that there was such a thing as an event permit or that I needed one. So thank you for looking at it. I hope you all have a copy of it. I know I just submitted it yesterday. This idea was hatched on Sunday. So,
Well, moving it forward.
yeah, the idea here is I participated in, turkey trots, 5Ks, things like that in other communities in the past. And being a new business owner in the village as of June, I'm just excited to invite friends, family, things like that to the shop. So I thought it'd be great to invite them and go for a jog through the village. On my application, I said I'm expecting 6 to 12 participants. As of right now, I have myself and my brother committed and 4 maybes. So we're talking about half a dozen maybe participants in this. I can run through the application, or if you've all reviewed it and have questions, I'm not sure how you'd like me to.
I mean, it's, in terms of closing routes and blocking roadways and things like that, you don't intend on doing any of that,
Run
correct?
across any
Yeah.
major streets.
Yep. So, I mean,
Alec was not available to check this, so you don't have his comments, but I did talk to Rob in Alec's absence, and he did not see any issues with that.
Okay.
I just didn't have that in an email format to get in your packet.
and you're well covered in insurance.
Yep, you said 1 million, and I believe we've got 2 on this one, and I do have 3 other insurance policies if you needed those.
Only hope
So
let's
you
not ever
gotta-
use that, but yes.
You gotta have a dozen folks out for a run.
Yep,
burning the calories before you eat them, right?
what was that?
Burning the calories before you eat them, right?
Yeah, I won't give you the whole sales pitch on Trinity, but
Yeah.
we're big on preparedness. So there's a little catchy thing on the Facebook event about preparing your metabolism for what you're about to do to it.
Right.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Yeah.
Mr. President, I'd like to approve the event permit for the Trinity Training and Security Turkey Trot Run.
All right. Well, we have a motion with support to approve the Trinity Training and Security Trot. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. And you're all welcome to come jog with us if you'd like.
Indeed.
Mr. President, my Assistant Village Manager, Alec Belson, is here away from his vacation and his family, which he may see that as a vacation, I don't know, but he's here. If we could have him present some items on the letter for the water
Please.
that went out.
Hi, Alec.
Good evening. Bear with me one second. Got a couple items for you, everybody.
And this is definitely in last minute in response to some of the comments we've been noticing online regarding the letter that went out and the emails that went out for the water services.
And I think just as a kind of a lead in that, we did have a study performed with regard to how much the expense of running the water and sewer services for the village versus the what residents are paying. We have historically been on the left side of the curve with regard to rate increases. So this is a really good
Thank you.
exercise to dive into how much it actually costs. Last year when they presented the numbers, when they were doing the rate increases, and Alec will certainly address it, it was a little confusing. I think people thought it was going to be a lot larger than it really was.
Yep.
So Alec,
Yep, and I think he's gonna talk more about the lead line replacement program that's going on
I
right
see.
now. That,
Yeah.
the letters that went out for that.
oh, I see, okay.
Good evening. Good evening, new members. So just to hit, just to kind of give new members an update of what I'm going to talk about, and old members recap. In 2018, the state amended the Public Act 399, that's Public Drinking Water Act. In that act, they required that all municipalities in the state of Michigan do a
Preliminary.
yes, thank you, distribution system inventory. So state wanted to know what service is serving every single resident and connection in your system. So by January 1st of 2020, we had to have that submitted to the state. So what we did with that is we took various records we may have, system knowledge that we had, and we determined what we think, and we're pretty sure what was in the ground. So that was if it's a plastic line, if it's a copper line, if it's a galvanized line with a lead pigtail. A lead pigtail is about 18 to 24 inches of lead coming from the water main to the galvanized line. Or if it's some type of ductile iron line or steel line, larger line. So we had to submit that in 2019. And if you look there, that's the individual sheet of paper that I gave you. So in 2019, with system knowledge and records, our records that we had, so when I'm talking records, I'm talking from the 60s, 70s, 50s, way back, are very few and far between. So we used a lot of institutional knowledge and then some services that we've seen recently. So at that time, we knew we had eight services that were galvanized that were previously connected to lead. So that means we'll use Main Street here, for example, or Grand Rapids Street. All that water main on Main Street and Grand Rapids Street has been replaced in the last 20 to 30 years. Prior to this PA 399 change, the village or any municipality in state was only responsible up to the street shutoff. So we would replace the water main, put a brand new service from the water main to the street shutoff, the property line, we were done. And that was statewide. That's how everybody did it, unless they owned the line farther, which we did not. So we replaced it to copper. All those new lines are copper from the water main to the curb stop. But we knew for a fact that there was 8 of them that were used to be connected to lead. So that means from the water main to the curb stop to the street shutoff is copper. And then from the street shutoff going into the home was galvanized. There's no more lead connected, but it's just that galvanized line. The state's theory on that is galvanized line, when it starts to rust and get old, it pits. And over time, lead particles can lodge into those pits. And any given reason, they can just dislodge and come out. So that's their theory of why they want those replaced. So keep moving. We thought, we're fairly confident there's about 138 services that still had the lead goosenecks. So the village does not have any entirely lead services in the village. The only lead that we've ever seen are 18 to 24 inches of gooseneck, and then the rest is galvanized. So when I'm talking lead service, that's what I'm talking about. Still have that lead connected to it. And then we figured there's about 517 services that were likely not lead, but we weren't confident of that at the time. And then there's about 503 services that we knew were not lead. And by the way I say that is, at that time, anything built after 1980, lead was banned, you couldn't use it. So any home that was built after 1980 at that time, we knew there's no way there's lead in it, we're set. So fast forward over the next 4 years, we do have a lead and copper testing program in the state, or in the state and in the village. Prior to 2018, we were required to test 10 residents every 3 years. 2019 came around and Eagle wanted to do a reset for us. So that when they reset, that means you start all the way at the max and you work your way back down. Also, that time we had a population increase. So at the time, our max was 20. They had reduced it down to 10. I'm throwing a lot, I apologize, but they reduced it down to 10. So we did a reset. So we proceeded over the next 3 years to collect roughly 258 samples from 2018 to 2020 out of about 58 homes. There was 5 rounds where I was going collecting 40 samples every 6 months. So I was contacting homeowners. Mr. Osterbahn would know. Every 6 months, I was knocking on the door. Hey, can you collect another sample for me? So since that time, we've shown that we've had very little lead in our system. Out of 260 samples that we've collected, we had 3 that were above the action level. Those 3, 2 of those homes have been replaced already. And one of those, I believe, was in the aerator, the same proper sampling technique. So 3 were above the action level. All the rest were either non-detectable or very low. So over the next 4 years, we proceeded with getting the grant. If council remembers, we got a grant to go through, investigate, and we potholed 135 services. So that means we dug on each side of the water main, each side of the street shut off, dug them up, looked to see what the material was, buried it, went into the house, looked at the material, and then from those, we did 131 of those. We were able to determine the rest of the services in the village. And what we use is we used a modeling. So, for example, up in the Downs Greenwood Street area, all those houses were built 1960 to 1975. Almost every single one of those houses were built right in that time frame. We looked at about 25 different homes up there. They were all copper. So then we would go into east side of town here. A lot of those houses are built in the early 1900s, 1940s, 1920s. We looked at 4 or 5 of those homes. They were galvanized. So we use that modeling, and what we've determined by doing that is that any house built after 1960 in the village is copper. And I'm about 95% certain of that. When I say 95 is because I haven't put eyes on every single one. If it was built in 1960, it's kind of a flip of a coin. And anything built before 1960 probably has galvanized that is currently connected to a lead pigtail or previously connected to a lead pigtail. There's a couple outlier streets that we didn't actually investigate and inspect. And the reason is it had to be a random inspection. So I had a total of 655 services that were unknown. I had to take 20% of those and inspect them and add randomly. I couldn't pick, okay, I want 4 from this street, 5 from this street. I put it in a program and just randomly chose. So there's 2 or 3 streets I would like to do a little more investigation over the next year. But other than that, I would say about 95% certainty, anything built after 1960 is copper or plastic, no concern whatsoever. And then we sent letters out of what somebody has seen on social media that were previously connected to lead or that may still be connected to lead. And that is the second document that I gave you. So 2019, we thought there was about 138 that were connected to lead. After 4 years of inspections, we're fairly confident that there's 73 that are still connected to lead in town. And then there's about 123 that were previously connected to lead that are just, we have to replace from the street shut off into the home yet. So that's about 196 services total we have to replace. This year, we've replaced about 39 of them. Since we've started, we've replaced about 46 total. So that's 46 plus the 196. That makes sense. So we still have 196 more to go.
Just out of curiosity on that, how long does it take to do one?
After all the investigation, inspection, scheduling, we can have 2 done in a day.
2 done in a day.
Right. But with that being said, we have to contact the homeowners, schedule with the homeowners to get into the home to inspect, to verify, because some homes we might not have been into, and we'll just say your house, I know your house doesn't have it, but use yours as example is, all right, Kevin, I know your house is galvanized, I'm positive of it, because of the age of the home and every house around there. I go to inspect your house, it's copper. Come to find out, 2 owners before you replaced the line because they had a leak. Or vice versa. So that's where we got to verify it before. So we get in there, we look at it, we give a batch about 10 to 20, then we give those to the contractor. And once the contractor gets them, then they start scheduling with the homeowner to make sure they can be home, because we have to be able to get into the home to replace that line.
It seems intense.
The scheduling is the worst part. Other than that, after that, I mean, like I said, I think about 20, if you look at some of these dates, I would say we knocked out about 20 of them within about 2 months, as long as we can get this, once all the scheduling's done.
And are they gonna, when it comes to, I know that there were some ARPA funds that we were using, ARPA funds for doing that. Are they
Yes.
gonna extend or expand, or what is that?
Right now, we are still in process of using our ARPA funds up. We started out with 150,000. I think we're down to about $80,000 left off the top of my head.
Roughly.
Is that something we can reapply for?
So
We can if it's offered by the state or the federal government. To my knowledge, there hasn't been a reallocation of those funds for that purposes.
So we are still constantly looking for grants and whatever we can do to help offset that cost.
Sure.
So
I have a question.
Mhm.
We only allocated half of the ARPA funds, I think, if I recall correctly, to the lead line replacements, and weren't we expecting to reallocate another half, or maybe I'm forgetting we did
So-
something?
I could touch a little bit on the first part at least.
Yes, so we allocated the full amount that we expected that would be
Okay.
needed to replace all those. And then the balance of the ARPA funds that were given were used for the security system and things like that.
So, and then part of the ARPA, we allocated the ARPA funds originally for inspections.
Right.
We were able to get a grant for the
Right.
inspections. So then we allocated the ARPA funds towards the replacements.
Yep.
Okay. And then we have to have everything spent down by end of 2025 by 2026?
I believe it's end of
2026.
2026,
Yeah.
end of 2026 or beginning of 2026?
End.
Okay.
Right.
All right, because I'm doing the math in my head, 197 left to go.
Well,
Are we
so,
gonna have-
197 left to go. Those funds that we have will not do all the 100.
Yeah.
So we're roughly somewhere between $3,000 and $5,000 per service to replace those.
Thank
And that is the 123 services. So right now, we're getting as many 123 services done that were previously connected, get those done as much as we can. And what staff is trying to do is
connect street reconstructions and street rebuilds to those other 73. Because if you look at some of the logic behind it, I guess, just simplicity. If we have 25 houses on a road and we gotta go all the way out to the water main and replace that all the way out to the water main, well, the road's gonna turn into Swiss cheese because we're gonna have to cut every other house. So then we could patch all those roads, or majority of those roads that need to be replaced, the roads are in bad shape, just like the water main's in bad shape. So if we can do both of those at the same time, that would be ideal.
Twofer.
Yeah.
I like
And
that
we
idea.
have until 2040 to finish all 196.
Thank you.
And I am open to meeting and talking with anybody about this. This has been my life for the last 4 years. There's a lot of details. We have just shy of 1,300 services. We went and I went through all 1,300 on a spreadsheet and assessed each one individually to make sure they are what we believe they are. So, and I had to turn all 1,300 into the state by October 16th of last year, or this year. So
Whatever you do, just etch it into stone so that somebody 60 years from now doesn't have to do what you're doing.
that's the goal, yeah.
For sure. That's great. Any other questions or concerns for Alec? Thanks, dude.
Yep, and let me, just be clear, the only people, if you got a letter, those are the ones that may be previously connected. If you did not receive a letter, you are fine, no worries, nothing to be concerned about.
Commercial properties, by the way, I just wanted to throw that out.
Those are
there.
included as well.
Yeah, okay,
All connections, period.
okay.
So prime example, when I did my randomized list, one of the services that popped up was Thornhill College High School.
Mm.
They are not lead service line because they have a 4-inch water main running into their building. So they are a cast iron or ductile iron main. So there's no issues with that.
There's probably a building on this side of the road that probably needs it.
From the services, correct, yes.
You just said the 73 that are hooked to lead didn't get a letter?
Did.
Oh, I thought you said just the 123.
No, I might have misspoke. So
Okay.
all 196 received a letter. Now, whether you're on the 73 list or 123 list, that letter is worded a little different, but all 196 received a letter. Should have.
We're on the 73, aren't we?
I believe so. Yours, that street right there is one of the streets that did not make my random inspection list. So, and I'm really curious about that street for the simple fact of in the last 6 months, I've seen 2 of those services. And what I have on the list says they're previously connected or they are, but the 2 services I've seen are actually copper. So I'd be curious to see a handful more on that street because it might turn into less. And as you can attest, I don't know if you remember, but the results come back either non-detect or minutely low. So.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
What are you doing here? Get back to your family.
Thank you, Alec.
Thank you, Alec.
Well, you're lucky you're not here to a screaming fest next door.
Yeah. I always appreciate that. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Forgot I'm moderating this meeting. All right, well, we are moving down to ordinances and resolutions. Craig, take it away, man.
Okay, so these are the resolutions required to adopt the water rates for the 2025 year, water and sewer rates. 10% increase as recommended by our water study that was completed last year. We're planning on redoing that water study next year to make sure we're still in line with where we need to be for recommendations. And if we need to make adjustments, even if we have to make adjustments to go lower next year or however that looks, we'll make those recommendations to you to make those determinations at that time. 10% for water for average consumer, so average residential consumer consumes about 20,000 gallons per quarter, would be $9.53 increase per quarter. So $3-ish per quarter increase per month for the average user. And then for the sewer, it would be average of that same 20,000 gallons would be roughly $15 per quarter, or total for everything, roughly $8 per month, including the readiness charge and the utility, the commodity charge. So
And this is still on the left side of the curve with regard to us getting
yes, so recommendations last
full
year,
funding on
if
this.
you recall, they recommended 20 to 25% increase per year to catch up. So we're doing it slower, but more rapidly than what your predecessors were doing. Your previous village council was increasing 2% a year, which was getting the village way behind of where we needed to be.
So a little bit of kicking the can a little bit.
Yes.
So we're the winners. I think, with regard to the rate increases, we just have to be realistic about it. The 2% increases a year is not a realistic approach, because it puts us in the hole further than we already are. Like we need to be fully funded, and if I went to McDonald's and bought a number one value meal, I couldn't just pay 30% of that and expect to get the meal. And we as a community have been kind of doing that for year after year after year after year, when they really should have been doing 3 to 5 to 7% increases, so that we would remain in the middle where we should be for the long haul on the services. So we're really actually just playing catch up, but we're still not caught up. We're just getting close to being caught up to where we should be. So it's a volatile topic, and I think it's really fair. $10 a month. It is $10 a month roughly for the average user of the consumer, and it is a lot of money. I mean, over time, it's a lot of money, but I think it's also, the people that are using it today aren't really actually paying for the service. They're only paying a fraction of it. So, and that might be 70% today. So we need to get back to where we're at 100% funded. So all these are good moves. It's still less than I wanted, but I just want us to be responsible. And I think and I know that's a really unpopular statement, but again, if we're fiscally responsible with that service, we need to be caught up. We just need to be caught up.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2427, FY 2025 water rates and charges.
Support.
We have a motion with support on Resolution 2427 for fiscal year 2025 for water rate charges. Is that a roll call?
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right. So Rhonda, may I please have a roll call?
Yep. Tracy Gillespie,
Aye.
Richard Hamilton,
Aye.
John Osterban,
Aye.
Mackenzie Peters,
Aye.
Ann Williams,
Aye.
Robert Bishop,
Aye.
Kevin Smith,
Aye.
and then you need sorry.
All right.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2428, FY 2025 sewer rates and charges.
Support.
We have a motion with support for Resolution 2428 for fiscal year 2025 for sewer rates and charges. Rhonda, may I have a roll call, please?
Richard Hamilton,
Aye.
John Osterban,
Aye.
Mackenzie Peters,
Aye.
Ann Williams,
Aye.
Robert Bishop,
Aye.
Tracy Gillespie,
Aye.
Kevin Smith.
Aye. All right. Mr. Stolzenberg,
Thank you.
council and staff reports.
Yes. We are working towards a joint meeting, as I mentioned earlier, with the DDA prior to our regular meeting on December 17th. We're hoping to have that at 5 p.m. To discuss the reorganization proposal, and hopefully we've received a number of follow-up questions regarding that. Mr. Powers and I have worked to answer all of those with the DDA board, and hope that they'll have them all, answered well enough so they can move forward with the adoption of that, and along with that, their budget for the 2025 year. So we are not planning on having a committee of the whole next week. Talked with President Smith this afternoon. We had 2 items on the agenda, proposed agenda, that could both be moved to the regular meeting of December 17th. So congratulations, you get elected, you get a week off. So in my report that I did finally write out, the Berry County Material Management Planning Committee, which was formerly known as the Solid Waste Oversight Committee, is looking for volunteers to serve on that, and they cannot be an appointed official. So previously, they needed somebody from the villages, somebody from the township, somebody from the county, somebody from waste management, somebody from all these other sectors, and they needed somebody from the county that was a village representative. And previously, it could be an appointed, as I am appointed by the council. It was me. Nobody else in the county wanted to serve in this role. I don't know why. It's so much fun. Every second Friday at 9 o'clock in Hastings at the Titan Center. But now the state is requiring an elected official, so an elected village representative. And so far, scouring the Berry County village representatives, nobody stepped up and said they wanted to do it. So if anybody's interested as an elected, every second Tuesday, every second Friday at 9 o'clock, let me know and we can put your name in the hat. Otherwise, they're gonna probably try to rope me in to do it again. So
Can you explain what the outcome of that
Is it
is?
9 a.m. or p.m.?
9 a.m. Yes.
Need to make
What-
notes, sorry.
What do they do?
So because the county has a landfill, we have to have a committee or an organization that basically collects the fees from that landfill, tipping fees they call them, and then they have to be redistributed into activities such as recycling. The Solid Waste Oversight Committee previously ran the solid waste, hazardous waste material, event every 2 years, twice a year for every year.
Do they do the electronic one?
Yes, yep. So all those things, so that's where all those funds go towards, and this committee basically organizes and pays, makes approval on where those funds are spent.
Interesting.
I would be interested in doing that.
I love that you're interested in that.
Well, I will get your information to Rachel, and
Okay.
that would be awesome. And the other item is, and the newly elected officials training, the in-person one in Lansing is December 12th from 5:30 p.m. till 9 p.m. Now, John, you were still interested at night. If anybody else interested?
I'm interested.
Okay, I'll get you signed up and I'll get you the information and move from there. Anybody else? Okay, 3 of you.
I'm going, yeah.
Okay, good.
I mean, I think I'm going.
Okay, perfect. And then I'll get you signed up with Alec to do your tour. If there is anybody else interested in that too, for the wastewater/water services tour.
I'll do it. It's great.
I would do it.
Yeah.
I'll send an email out, and if you haven't done it, then, but for sure, you two will get you signed up for that.
Is there anything more than we did on the mayor exchange?
No, it's pretty similar to
Okay, all
that.
right. Then I'm,
Okay, very good. Any other questions?
What time is that, 17th, December 17th?
5 o'clock. Yep. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Powers? Welcome.
Good evening, council. So I believe, Rhonda, if you wouldn't mind. So before you have, currently what's going on this month. One item, since I know, the TIF for the Mid-Villa project, you'll see that the storage units is one of the items that's on there. What they'd shown previously, as I don't have, the assessor isn't here, but I can say that that was shown to generate more property taxes than the current site is as it has sat. Beyond that, the 36 State Street, we do have a preliminary development agreement that me and Mr. Stolzenberg are working on, trying to potentially move that forward. Couple items that need to be addressed, so there'll be more information forthcoming. Beyond that, it's a slower time of the year. I don't know if anyone has any specific questions, but of course, TIF stuff, I'm always open to answer those as well.
Excuse me. Sorry.
Are we having a meeting Tuesday?
So no, cancellation notice was sent out about the planning commission meeting. We aren't having a meeting. However, our survey for community input for the master plan has gone live. And we do have QR codes available on business cards, as well as that's going to be being distributed through social media, newspaper, other items forthcoming. So we can start receiving more of that community feedback in regards to what, people with a vested interest would like to see in this community over the next 20 years. Give us some more vision before we look into, additional master plan updates.
Which is a big task. Any questions for Doug? Comments? Criticisms?
No criticisms.
Thank you, Mr. Powers. Appreciate
Thank
you. Mr. Bob, come on up.
Good evening. October 15th, November 15th, you've got the report. So a couple of corrections. There was a lot of RVs that were in the properties, and a lot of them got moved to the fairgrounds. The end date that where they were supposed to be gone was 30th of September. I think it was 30th. But in September. The fairgrounds didn't accept any RVs until later on that month, or into October. So that's why.
Is it the same time every year, though?
It seemed like it was earlier last year, but they started accepting on a reserve basis middle of October. And so there were just a lot of people that just didn't have their RVs taken care of.
Probably because of the nice weather.
Well, a lot of that.
And they couldn't get them to the fairground.
Yeah.
Could we, just as a point, could we find out from the fairground? Is it?
I called the fairgrounds, got that info.
In terms of like future.
Yeah, I could do that next,
Okay.
yeah. And they get released early April, and it's a one Saturday, and it's a mass exodus. But, well, everything is pretty cut and dried there. There's a lot of things that I've got that are listed as open that are now closed. And the permits that I take pictures of sheds, permits, fences, turn them over to Doug and takes care of them from there. And I did an overnight parking run. You might have noticed that, but this was just with warnings, notices that kind of state that it's 2 a.m. to 6 a.m., no parking on any village street, just for from November 1 to March 31. And that's just so the plows can get through. I tag basketball hoops and trash cans that are in the road, and so I will do that again at some date when I decided to. When I feel like getting up at 2 o'clock in the morning. Questions, comments?
Awesome.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, sir. Council liaison reports. Mr. Hamilton,
Doug just gave it.
done. All right, we're done. Anyone else?
Yeah.
Liaison
Library was canceled.
canceled?
Yep, library was canceled and TAPRC didn't have a quorum. So it was gonna be Catherine, Eric, and I. And then I'm like, well, there's not a quorum. So Catherine and Eric passed out the coach awards. It said that didn't require an actionable item, so that's where
Excellent.
we're at, yeah.
All right. No unfinished business? No new business? Boards and commissions, you have all that in your packet. DDA revenue and expenditure report. Down to public comment. Anyone like to come back to the mic? All right. That leads us with final council comments. So, Mr. Hamilton, you're going to start.
Appreciate the public input here tonight. Educational for us to understand the strain people are under with taxes. Size 18,000. My son pays 15,000 out in Yankee Springs Township. Being 87 years old, this is unbelievable. That's about all I can say. I mean, it's a strain on folks, young people in their homes. And it is truthful that if you go 25 miles southeast of here, it's $100,000 difference in a home, same kind of house.
And there's availability.
And, yeah, there's availability. The other thing, if you drive around that town, there's a lot of decrepit homes purchased by slumlords, not being kept up. The village just turned all of their commission work over to the county. Nobody wants to volunteer. So when you see Middleville and you see some other village and you look at numbers, you really aren't doing apples and oranges, dealing with the numbers. So that would be my comment for what public's left here, that we are different. A lot of good reasons. We've got a zoning fellow that goes around from 1 o'clock in the morning till 5. He wanted me to ride shotgun with him, but I thought I'll pass on that. And, but when I drive around that little town, or a lot of little towns, there's junk in the yards, nothing's being taken care of, old trailers that nobody ever lives in anymore, just collapsing and falling apart, nothing ever done about it, because they're not spending the money to do something about it. Or they don't have the money to do something about it. Or they don't have the volunteers to work to do something about it. That's all I got to say. That we have, for a town of 4,400 growing soon probably to 5,000, I think we're doing very, very well. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bishop's. Mr. Bishop.
Well, one of the things I'd like to say about the people of Middleville is I think we have a great community, and I would like to see more volunteerism, but that's a problem that everybody's having. But I also see things like we don't have the problems that Yankee Springs has, where Yankee Springs Township has a lot of people's second homes. So now if you need to raise taxes for services, or you need to do all these things, these are people that do not want to spend extra money on their second home. And we don't really have that. We have people living in the community, active in the community, and using the services here. And it's nice to see that while we do have people that want to make reasonable cuts or reasonable adjustments to budgets, that's great. I encourage that. But oftentimes that comes at a cost, and and if that's what people want, that's fine. But also, it's nice to be able to say, at least we don't have to worry about rich people in Kentwood not voting on taxes here. So I see that as a bonus. That we have a good community to be in.
I think we have a great community, and I've been here long enough to remember when we didn't have the numbers that we have today. And it's been really nice to see the growth, really nice. I just am afraid that we will see a decline and not an increase in our population, because there is a lot of talk of people can't already afford the daily living expenses, and there's no money to pay more. And a lot of people are talking about moving a lot. I mean, I see it every day, and I'm just afraid we're going to lose some of that growth if we don't. I don't understand the tax system as well. I'm going to do a lot of, research because we got the township taxes, we have the village taxes. But there seems to be some kind of disconnect as far as the fairness of it for homeowners and the property values. I know a lot of people pay a lot more than I do. So I'm not one of the ones complaining, fortunately, but there's a lot of people who are, and they just don't have it. You can't pay what you don't have. And so they'll have to leave to be able to afford it. And I just don't want to see that happen after we just enjoyed all this growth that we've seen.
I'd like to add on top of that, just if I might,
You may.
if you were to attempt to flee this community for someplace more affordable, many of the projects that are in the areas that are more affordable were put there with TIFs. So if you go down to Hastings and look at, the Tide Flats and things like that, those were all TIF projects. And I would just like that pointed out.
Does that drive up the taxes? I mean, I don't understand it all fully, so.
No, it doesn't drive up your
Yeah.
taxes. It basically, the man, Nate, who just doing the Middle Village, he pays taxes into a pool that he can then, as long as he makes approved improvements to
He
the
just gets a
land,
tax break,
he
right?
gets some of his
Yeah,
tax money
That's always
back.
been a good thing.
And so basically what, we got pipelines and stuff that need to be removed. We have environmental detriments that need to be removed, and someone has to pay to do that, whether it's us, the taxpayer, where we do it on our dime and then try and sell the land, and you can't make any money by law, so that's an immediate loss, or you incentivize someone to do it on their dime, and you give them a break in their taxes, so that effectively, we pay to clean up the land, but we do it in just not collecting taxes for a certain amount of time. So all it is basically a discount.
And that's the man, Mr. Powers is the man that has all of those answers, and he loves to talk about the TIF. Loves it.
I didn't think that was something that.
He signs up for, he likes to have a sign-up sheet for people to come see him about
I
the
know, I used
TIF.
to work with Brian all the time.
Because I've done that many times, and Doug has invaluable information. He's phenomenal about that. Is that it?
Yep.
All right, very good. Ann, please.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. Nice to have you guys here. I'm gonna second, but having the public here was exactly what we needed. I think it was great to see new faces, great to hear from your opinions and what you thought, and it's great to hear everyone say back. Like, I like that back and forth communication. That's what we need more of. Other than that, I'm good. That's all.
Excellent.
Thanks.
John?
Oh, it was a very interesting first meeting for me. I've never done anything like this before, so it was informative to learn how the whole project, I know I got a lot more learning or education to come along with it, but I've been this part of this community for more than 30 years, or almost 28, 30 years, and I've enjoyed living here, enjoy the people, and just I'm now getting some background on what, I got used to, picking up the leaves, doing the, being able to blow the leaves into the curb. That doesn't happen everywhere. We'll pick it up, all that costs money. So, yeah, it's something you get used to, and maybe when it goes up, so I do appreciate, and it's going to be a learning process for me.
Thank you. Welcome Tracy and John
Thank
to
you.
the council. It's very exciting to have some fresh
New faces.
new faces and some fresh opinions, and it'll be exciting to work with you all the next couple of years. A couple things. It was amazing to have the public here, but I also encourage folks to recognize that when you look at one piece of information but not the other, you don't get a whole picture. So if you're wanting to learn more or you can't make it to a meeting, you have 3 avenues of information, and all 3 of those together can give you a full picture. That is meeting minutes, watching our YouTube videos to see the discussion, and then our staff. Our staff can fill in a lot of those gaps. I don't feel that, from recent conversations I've had with folks, that there's a true understanding of taxes in general, especially for those that pay through escrow. Not to use your number, Chris, but I'm going to use your number of 8,000 a year. 8,000 does not mean 8,000 in village taxes. That probably means 2,000 in village taxes, and then 6,000 that is billed through the township. That's not township taxes in its wholeness. It's through the township that collects for not just township taxes, but county amenities such as the COA and the transit, state and county taxes as well for their services that they have to provide. So it's very important to understand the whole picture on those things.
In the school.
In the school, right, yep, in the schools. So when we look at taxes, it's good to know all the services that go into that. And then when we look at water, whether we agree with it or not, we have a huge complex that no one on this board facilitated, but it was something that previous board members recognized the need for, especially if we're growing. By regulation, it has to pay for itself. There is no way that we can just, oh, well, it's the general fund, we'll just spend some money for that. We can't say, well, we waived the TIF. Not an abatement, by the way. It wasn't a complete tax abatement. It's just a waive of the incremental growth of that property. But it's easy to stand there and say, well, you're levying $300,000 that could go to this water waste. That's not how it works. There's regulations we have to follow. So again, I encourage everybody to go through those 3 platforms to fully understand. And we're all always open, I'm sure, as elected officials to answer the best to our ability. And if we need to, obviously utilize the go to Craig, statement. And then I just want to provide a point of clarity before I get in trouble for it. Kurt had asked if Hastings is looking for the flock system. I don't think they are. I don't know that answer to the question. I misspoke. I just remember Sergeant Ware had mentioned that the county was looking into it, not just Hastings. But I just want to provide that clarity before it shoots me in the foot.
I believe the state police is planning on adding 1 or 2 cameras
Right.
in
yeah.
Hastings.
Right.
Well, in fairness, there's cameras all over the country already. I mean, it's not a new idea. We're not,
Right. And going out in public is not a violation of Fourth Amendment rights,
Right.
You don't, there's no invasion of privacy unless someone is right here. But I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know. I'm just going based on what smarter people have told me. And then with that, I want to wish everyone a very happy Thanksgiving and happy holidays. We'll see you next month, but hope every one of you get to spend time with your families. And I have a little funny story, if you'll indulge me. So I was wondering why my water bill was nearly $300 for the last 2 quarters, and it's always been kind of high. And my Don told me that for a family of 5, it's less than $200. And I'm like, gosh, I'm single. I don't go through that much water. Turns out I have a water softener that's been leaking 0.6 of a gallon per minute since I lived there. So for those with high water bills, please check your water softeners. On that note, that's all I have.
Or your toilets or anything
Yes,
else.
toilets or anything else.
Well, I was told to also, you still have, well, at least at my house, I got a meter downstairs. Make sure everything's off in your house, go downstairs and see if that thing's still ticking, then you got a leak somewhere.
I got a leak.
Yeah.
My water bill's high.
Thanks for coming. It was great. And, you know, if everybody that had a complaint came to us or a topic that they wanted to bring to the board and came with data, at least we can address that data and at least realign ourselves and hopefully you, and that you walk away with more knowledge than you did when you came in. So this was awesome. And I encourage that at scale, whatever. I mean, if people have a complaint or concern, by all means, this is the forum to bring those concerns, and this was the right way to do it. So thank you for that. Really appreciate that. I'm not going to go into the TIF other than everybody's already kind of covered it. It's a complex issue. I think people need to learn more about it. And these meetings we've talked, I mean, we didn't know anything about TIF. There was so much misunderstanding of the TIF because the board itself was fairly new. We didn't know what we were talking about really. And I can only speak on my behalf that I spent a lot of time reading about it. And there's just a lot of boring stuff. I mean, it's nighttime reading for sure. If you're not able to sleep, learn a little bit about the tax incremental financing program. It's crazy. It has great roots, and it's meant with the old Reaganomics trickle down theory that if someone comes in with a wad of money, they come in and it just helps the community when they invest in a specific initiative. And it works, and it does work when it's well managed and it's targeted for the right reasons. That sort of financing certainly is very helpful for our community. And Mr. Hybor he is so full of grace. The guy could have walked at any time and chose Middleville for a home to a great opportunity. And I'm very thankful for him and certainly share that with him as much as I can. Welcome. I hope this was a great first day. I am a little disorganized. I'll get my flow down and make this go a lot better. But we had a full schedule today, so thanks for sticking in there. I love this community. I'm very humbled and thankful for this role, and that gavel is heavy. And I will say that all I can hope for is to just generate communication amongst everybody and including ourselves, and create an environment where we can have conversations. We don't always have to agree, but we all have a platform to speak from, and we're able to do that. So I'm thankful for that. Happy holidays. Eat a lot of turkey if that's your thing. Staff, I just wanted to show as much appreciation for all the efforts that you put forth every single day. And this is in small part, this is no exception. You guys make these meetings happen flawlessly, and it's even if the guy up there is a buffoon. So at the center mic. And with that, I think a motion is in order.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Support.
We have a motion with support to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Enjoy your evening.
Thank you.
Potty break.
Right. Let's talk about that. That was an hour ago.
So does that mean you can't mention things?
If four of us were sitting in a room, we could not talk about anything that we talk about on these events.
Okay. Okay.
Or anything
How
for
do you
that
get
matter.